Oh, hang on, I've got an advert. I can't check just yet. I'm not actually sure we have any audio at all over on the Twitch. If we do, something's gone wrong on my end. Oh no, I can hear it now. Okay, it's fine. I'm not hearing you over Twitch, which is odd. But
Yeah, whoops. Alright, well, now I'm here. I always forget to unmute that because I have 3 places I unmute. I unmute on Discord, on my headset mic itself, and I have it muted on Streamlabs until I unmute that. So that last part I didn't do.
Alright, yep, that's fixed it.
Okay, cool. So those of you on Twitch who didn't hear me, if anyone's over there, I'm gonna give it a minute. Let people join. People are sending random images in the Campfire chat room that have nothing to do with Endless Sky. We're off to a good start. Pilcor asks me what color is my favorite number of the alphabet? Tuesday on a sunny day. Oh, we're at 12? Okay, cool. How's Anna Fangiven doing now? Don't know. I just realized you guys are going to hear my browser sound effects now if I open Windows. Oh no. Alright, I'm just going to open this. It's over here. I'm going to mute that. Boom. Oh, that's not a good way to do that. Never mind. Some people are going to be late, some devs will be late. Some other devs are already here with me. And it's been a minute since I posted these. I believe the last time I did was more than 4 Campfire chats ago, so a little under half a year ago. Hello, hello. How is everybody's summer so far? Besides hot. Too much pollen. Yeah. It's actually cooler out today. Hello, Tybe.
Hello. Did we get started on the questions already?
Nope, not yet. We're just waiting for people in, kind of small chatting it up. Ask her when summer is. Besides hot.
I don't really get to do summer things, I suppose.
True. So what's been happening in the realm of ES lately? Well, it's been a bit more quiet in terms of just how things have appeared. People are busy in the summer. Some of us are working on stuff on GitHub. Some of us have been on vacation, such as Derpy, who will not be with us today, but next time for sure. How many core features do we need to reduce global warming?
I guess that depends on where you place them.
That depends
Like if
on...
you just put them on the ground, they are not gonna do anything.
I was trying to think of a way to say how many world ships would that be, though. More than one. Anyone want a nice other place to live? I see you talking about Garapu. You're not getting any answers from me. I'd say we can start looking at getting into some questions then. If you guys haven't submitted any questions yet, there is a pinned Google Sheets in the Campfire chat room, and you can submit questions there, or you can ask them in chat and we'll get to them as we see them, if we can. Has there been any progress in opening universe editor and just setting the game role? False. I was reading that. I was thinking you were talking about one of the ES editors. I thought that was going somewhere, and then I realized it was a joke. I was gonna say no. Quick hasn't come back. It feels bad. All right. Well, is there anything you guys want to talk about before we start with the game? Anything you've been working on or would like to work on?
I'm pretty sure I had something, but I don't remember it now, so yeah,
All right.
let's just get started.
You'll remember it in about like 13 minutes, some odd number, and then it'll already been time past talking about it.
Yeah.
Make sure I didn't miss anyone on the Twitch side. Nope. Alright, well, I say let's get started with these questions. First, this isn't a question, I'm just reading chat. First Class is the single most powerful human to have ever lived. Granting fleets of alien warships, working billions of dollars, having government and military connections. Alright. So I'm looking at this first question here, but there's absolutely nothing for it. So I'm going to go to the next question. There's an entry there. I'm surprised there's nothing in it. Or is it like written really off right at the side here? No, it's not. Okay. Put this over here for me. First question is, how many times have people suggested lateral thrust or other similar movement mechanics? A decent amount. It's not uncommon, but it's not, you know, like an everyday thing. It's been a request before, although it's been a contentious one to put it one way. What we want to do with Endless Skies, we want to keep the movement a bit more simplistic with just simply rotation and forward, backwards movement. There has been talk about lateral thrust being a sort of unique style of thrust if given to aliens maybe someday, but I'm not so sure what the plan is on that or if that's the case. And if it was, it wouldn't be like an overall addition to how flight works right now. But we don't want to overcomplicate how flight works past what it already is. Now that may not be like super complicated to some people, but we're trying to keep that more kind of arcadey style of flight rather than the more realistic style of inertia and all that. Doom says, who asked this and why is the question how many times has this been asked rather than can we have it or why isn't it a thing? I'm wondering if it was asked because it might be, they might be looking at it like, oh, if people ask it enough, we'll implement it. It's like, no, not really.
So if you just look at reverse thrusters, like they already don't work properly like 10% of the time because something glitches out in the movement code.
Yeah, especially
like
with
if you have lateral thrusters as well, it's gonna be rough.
So I want to overcomplicate.
So they just
sorry.
yeah, they just fix reverse thrusters first and then do all of the other fancy types.
Yeah. Thank you for the follow, Rowan, on my Twitch. So it wouldn't just be complicating flight, it'd also be complicating code, and then the corrections the AI has to make when coming to a stop, which is already a pain in itself. Doom says, I have tested branches with it and couldn't work out any set of keybinds that was even vaguely comfortable to use. That's kind of what I've noticed in other games that use like thrust in all directions too, is it's really hard to have like a good default scheme for that sort of thing. So
yeah. WASD-QE, as suggested here by Mage, is pretty common, and it does kind of work, I think.
You'd also need up and down thrust too, though, which I guess could be RNF. Either way, though, I'm not sure.
Not really. I mean, we only need 2D and
I'm sorry.
forward and reverse.
Myself. I'm thinking. See, this is what I'm thinking. I'm like, we're talking about lateral thrust. I'm going a step ahead. I'm thinking we're adding 3 dimensions. That's a whole nother story. Alright.
Yeah.
But if we like, it's still kind of a not sure case. If we ever did, it would be like a minimal implementation. It wouldn't be a universal one, even at that. Not sure. Not really a priority to look at. 4D keyboard. You ever see those shows where there's like a keyboard and then it projects a hologram of another keyboard on top of it and you're like using 2 keyboards at the same time? Let's do that.
And it's always like a super uncomfortable like vertical keyboard. Yeah. And your wrists are at a really weird angle and you can't type properly.
Yeah. I'm gonna play In the Sky, 3 different clients of In the Sky at the same time on my 3 different monitors.
I do wonder if controller players would have an advantage. Because you could have like 2 sticks and control it that way.
Speedrun all 3 campaign sides when they're in the game at the same time. See which one's the longest. Alright. Let's get to the next question. Would hyperdrives eventually get variations for each species? It is rather odd that they develop the exact same hyperdrive when it is clear that they have varying design philosophies due to their culture, history, and available materials. So this is kind of it's kind of similar to the last question in that it's brought up every now and then. When you say variations, possibly visual variations where they might have different graphics. As for stat variations, that would probably be unlikely because hyperdrives, the way hyperdrives and jump drives are right now is kind of more of a universal, same thing with steering and stuff. It's more of a universal kind of design where we don't want to overcomplicate that as well, because once you start giving other factions of hyperdrives that are worse or better than something, it's going to turn into a metagame for jumping. Doom says we could probably do that without a massive amount of trouble. Honestly, there's one mission in the game that has to check for and take a hyperdrive. That's really the only thing that could potentially be an issue. I think the issue in the past was more how would we balance something like that, and how would we differentiate it enough from a standard hyperdrive to make it a meaningful addition to the game. I'm not sure.
I actually don't think it's going to be an issue. Like we could integrate hyperdrives with other components as well if we wanted to. I think the Emerald cert does that, right? Like it has a hyperdrive integrated into like the
Yeah, it's part of
thrusters or
its
something.
it's part of its engine system, so it's like all one big module.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, balancing different outfits that do similar things with different stats is something we already do for everything else in the game, so it's obviously possible. I don't think there's something magically different about hyperdrives that means that somehow that specifically wouldn't work for them.
It's more so the case of jump drives, right? If we start trying to introduce jump drive variants where they can go farther than what the game usually does, or they have a bigger range, or use less fuel, that's a bit more of a balance change than I think what we're talking about here. If this is specifically talking about hyperdrives, I mean,
I mean, yeah, it
perhaps.
says hyperdrives.
Yeah.
Hyperdrives, I think, we fine. Jump drives on. I mean, obviously, we wouldn't want to change jump range because it's
Yeah.
quite important to how the map's designed that that's constant. But I mean, the same factors that you could change with a hyperdrive, you could change just as easily with a jump drive, and it wouldn't be any more of a problem. The issue with jump drives is that there's a lot of missions that require either check whether you have a jump drive or take jump drives from you, and that might get messy if we have to keep track of multiple different types of jump drive.
I'd imagine
So then-
So that's my only concern with that. But with hyperdrives, that's not an issue, and we could very easily just have separate hyperdrives. It would just require someone to PR it and then it to be balanced and have good art and stuff.
I think there are only like 2 missions that check for jump drives. But that is the free world mission where you get the jump drive to jump into the plug planets. And then there is the time when you are selling jump drives to the unfettered.
I mean, even in that case, with jump drives, I think one of those missions that we changed recently to check for the attribute, not the outfit itself. So, I mean, that's something we can work around. But that being said, this is being about hyperdrives.
Coalition.
The other thing with hyperdrives is technically there's already a variant anyways in the game with the scram drive. They're both human hyperdrives though, and other alien factions, I think some of them have scram drives as an outfitter. In their outfitter, sorry. I know in the past there were ideas for other possible future factions to have a separate hyperdrive. So again, for me it would just come down to how would we differentiate them enough for it to matter. Like, oh, this hyperdrive is 10 more tons, but uses a little less fuels. Small stuff like that, right? Scram drive already isn't causing any of these problems. I think it's something we could talk about though. Since
Yeah. I guess with jump drives, we would be stuck with the integrated jump drive solution for differentiating species.
Fairy asks, if we had jump drive variants, what would happen to the existing jump drives? If we have different Korath, Korg, Relay Pug, etc. variants, and you already had a default jump drive on your ship, would that turn it into what the update hits? Specifically answering that last part, no, it wouldn't change it unless we change that specific outfit. If there are new ones, then they would be separate from it. Although I don't know if we would go as far as to make jump drive variants. Maybe, but I think we should first, if we ever look at variants for hyperdrives, I think we should start with hyperdrives and then worry about jump drives later. Just need to default the base outfits to something. Yeah. We probably deprecate the original one. Yeah. Same thing with the Korg stuff. All Korg outfits it wouldn't just disappear or break the definition in the game, but everything, all the ships in the game would probably be updated, or would be. So yeah, it wouldn't break anything unless we get rid of deprecation. So yeah, maybe we could look at that. Next question is it possible to make a mode where the player has a limited amount of lives? For each time the flagship pilot dies, a point is deducted from the original amount of lives, and once it reaches 0, the whole run is over, can't be opened. This is kind of relevant, because just the other day, like a week or two ago with dev chat, we were talking about someday having difficulty levels, and that included things like possibly limiting your fleet, or possibly having like hard mode where if you die, you die. Changing how other global game rules work, so like missile mechanics, get into that a little bit. But is it possible? I mean, Tom, is it possible?
Kind of, I think. Like we have some kind of a global conditional system where we can save conditions across save files. You know, whether you have finished the main campaign at any point, for instance. We could use that system to count how many times you have died in a particular save, because it would get around just reloading your save when you die, right? And that wouldn't need any new mechanic. You could probably just do this in a plugin. But we could add something for this that would make it a seamless experience.
I think it could be something.
It has to be pretty janky as a plugin.
Yeah, I think it could be something to look at putting into game rules. One idea we were talking about was for game rules, maybe having some sort of default preset for applying the game. Maybe there's one that says this is how Endless Sky is intended to be played. Maybe another one is like more convenience sake things. So like maybe we move the missile ammo changes to that. Maybe that's fleet size is unlimited. And maybe there's another one that's like restricted or hardcore where it limits your fleet size, you have less lives, or I don't know if it would like delete your save on your death or something like that, but implement just the handy dandy delete save button in the main menu. That is true, but I know there's like this is that kind of deal where just because the restriction can be done by the player doesn't mean it's less easy to have it as an actual tangible setting in the game. So like we could sit here all day and say, oh, Endless Sky is a solo player experience where you are typically expected to be flying one or a few ships, but that very easily turns into, oh well, I can just capture that real quick. Oh, I'll just capture that real quick. But yeah, it is true though. Self-imposing rule sets is one way to do it. Tom says we should add escape pods first IMO. How are you thinking escape pods should be implemented? Because there's two different ideas so far of that. One is they're like an actual subcraft, or like kind of like a fighter, like it launches you out after you die and you can like maneuver with it like a tiny bit. And then another idea has been it's more in line with like the Escape Velocity series, where it just automatically ejects you and it saves your save file somewhere on a safe planet or something like that. I know that's a pretty contentious discussion on how escape pods should function, so can implement both and add a game rule to toggle between them. Yes, just do it and then add a game rule later. Perhaps. It depends on how much we want to make everything a game rule. I know we were talking the other day saying not everything needs to be a game rule or accessible or part of the game. But
how many people here have actually edited game rules?
I've seen some people edit, or I guess I should say it this way. The most I've seen people edit game rules is to remove person ships or lower their frequency. Do day-night cycle fall. Octave's edited it once. Doom and Iraqi are still talking about hyperdrive variants.
We could keep the bucket jump drive that does the exact same thing, but it has different colors for the effect.
The red jump drive? I don't remember what that was from, but I know that in the game's files, like way back when, there was, or I think they still might be in it, sound effects for a red jump drive that I don't think was ever put in the game. Hector says, it feels like the easiest and most immersive option would be to just have an escape pod that spawns on ship destruction which you can take control of. Perhaps with an emergency shield or something that kicks in for a handful of seconds so you don't get instantly wrecked. Otherwise, it just seems like a save with more steps. So you're thinking the more interactive approach where it's also a ship entity in the game and not a... Unlike what it would be in Escape Velocity, where it was more of a, once you died, it launched, and then the screen faded into the save file being reloaded. Well, not reloaded, but spawning you on a new planet with, you know, you don't have your ship anymore because it exploded. That does make a little more sense. That is kind of more what ES leans into, is the more active side of things. The question, I guess not question, but then you have to kind of consider that I feel like a majority of players nowadays, because you're not limited to it at all, would just reload their save file to begin with. I can't really see a case where someone lost in a really important ship or a ship they liked, or they were in the middle of a campaign and they had to start over because they didn't have enough money to buy the next one, where they would continue that gameplay without just reloading a save to last landed planet. But I guess that's again another individual case of restriction. Intended mode and a hard mode and such is something we want to get around to. Derpy has made a PR and he's working on code for implementing game rules so there's more accessibility to them for the average player, and then someday maybe making presets or something like that. Yeah. Hector says, I wouldn't actually mind if fighting in systems that have no hyperdrive connection to safe space were a bit more of a risky endeavor overall. Since if your ship dies, your escape pod is still stranded. Seems like it could be a cool way to raise the stakes a bit when you're fighting in dangerous territory. It depends on the dangerous territory, right? Because if we're talking jump drive space or something like that, then at that point, if you're out in an escape pod, what really are you waiting for if there's no one or no NPC or like fleet that would spawn that would come and rescue you? In human space, for sure. Like if you get stranded in an uninhabited system or something like that, there's always a chance some merchant fleet will find and help you. Maktiv says, what if when you got destroyed, you got in your escape pod and then had to call for help? When you got help, you'd be boarding that ship that rescue you would have salvaged your ship, so you got something like 20% of its value back to avoid soft lock plus the cost of the escape pod, and transported back to the nearest planet you could buy stuff on. That's kind of a good idea. It's almost an in-between of EV and Endless Sky, where you're still flying around your escape pod, but something comes to rescue you, and it still, I guess it would still kind of teleport you, I guess, to a safe planet, and your life would still be saved, and you would get a portion of what you lost. But obviously you wouldn't have your ship anymore, so. But you could see your ship explode. Yeah. Escape pod could be something you buy for insurance. Yeah, that or an outfit or something. Will AI have escape pods as well for immersion? Yeah, again, that's another... Escape pods in the sense of saves would be more of a player thing, but AI, it'd be kind of odd if the ship just died and there's an AI escape pod just flying around, especially if it was hostile. Maybe that's more of a flotsam thing, I don't know. People were talking about that too, but it is... There's a lot of things we could do with escape pods. Confuse even more people.
So I am worried about fleet battles because there could be a lot of escape pods flying around command species.
That's why I think back again to EV, where escape pods for the player were a means of save mechanics, and then for the AI it was upon ship death, the AI would have a random chance of launching one to like a defined amount of escape pods, and it was purely a visual just to show, oh my god, people are jumping out, get off board, the ship's blowing up, and then they would just slowly disappear. People are talking about that being flotsams that you could define. Maybe has a few flotsam escape pods. I think if we do look at the AI, it'd be better as something like that rather than it being explicitly a flyable ship, because that could, like you said, get messy, especially in fleet battles. For the AI, at least. I don't know. We should start with at least what they should mean for the player before we consider something like fluff on AI ships. The rescue stories vary based on what part of the galaxy it blew up in. It says Discord's cutting off your name. Streamer mode, stop it. Oh, Rowan. Blew up in empty systems in the Far East, for example. Pretty much only Drak Korg could save you. That's another thing, is should you be saved if you're that far away? Does it make sense? And is that a gameplay convenience, this and that, you know? There's a lot we could do with it. We have a lot more questions, so I do want to move on, because this one's been a lot about escape pods. Definitely food for thought, though, that's for sure. Hello, people who are joining. Next question is I guess it's kind of a question. Player can change his swizzle after free worlds when? I think we talked about that
When you
last time.
download the plugins.
Yeah, download plugins. I think we talked about this last time, didn't we?
I don't know, honestly. I don't think I was here for the last one.
I don't remember if it was last Campfire chat or if it was just like a side discussion, but I remember...
I think it was in one of the dev chats.
Okay.
Yes.
I remember us talking about the 3 different sides and painting your ships, and then if you're no longer part of the free worlds or something like that, like let's say you get that probation period, like should your ship still be green or something like that? I think what it ended up being is swizzles are basically commitments to the faction you're picking. So if you're changing your swizzle, it's a result of you painting your ship in the colors of a faction. So I don't see why you would change your swizzle after the free world story when that's the side you chose. What would you change your swizzle to? Like you shouldn't change it to the Republic or the Syndicate after all of that with the free worlds.
You could change it to the Wanderer colors if you are having a fight against the Cestor.
Yeah, well, you know, when you join the Heliarchs, you would get the Heliarch colors, which are the yellow. So if, for example, you have completed, so if during the free, if you did the way I explained in the text chat, so essentially to start off with, you only have merchant blue colors like available. When you start Free Worlds, it switches you to green and then locks you into green color for the duration of Free Worlds. Apart from that bit where you get kicked out, in which it switches you back to blue, obviously, and then will then lock you out of green. And then when you complete Free Worlds, now your color isn't locked, and you have both blue, merchant blue, and Free Worlds green available. And then later on you might join the Heliarchs, and then you add Heliarch yellowy gold swizzle to the list of swizzles that you have available, and so then you'd be able to switch between them. That's sort of the system I'd be imagining if we were to do this. I think that'd be the best way to do it.
I'm wondering if we should have an option that says remove my paint like after a story. Like what if you complete the Free Worlds campaign and then you're done with all that, maybe you don't want the green still, maybe you want to go back to merchant colors?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. After you've completed the campaign, it would then take off the lock that you had during the campaign, and you would have now available to you both the blue that you were started with available and Free Worlds green. So they'd both you'd be able to switch between them.
I wonder if we could add this to the outfitters. So you could you would have like a separate category for these paints, and you could just pick which one you want and install that. And it would automatically uninstall whatever you had on before.
We could do that, but I think what we want to avoid is just making it so you can just paint your ship colors, just having paint as something in the outfitter, because it's a little bit more important than just the color of your ship when it's tied to stories and governments. We'd rather have a new UI element. DLC.
Where would we have it? Like, I don't just want it at the end of a storyline, because maybe I don't want to change it yet, but after a week of using it, I get tired of it and want to go back to a different color.
Don't think using it for the outfitter is the best way. Are you thinking like having like another button or something, and like a small button, like a, what do you call those 3 lines usually you see on websites, like drop down menus, something like that, in the planetary menu, something like that? Probably put a thing that comes up when you press I. Oh yeah, so you mean in like the player info panel. Could do that.
I suppose. But only on a planet.
Yeah, it'd be odd if you just change your colors mid-flight. Turn into an ambulance flashing like red and white colors. Header, body, footer. Make sure to put your name in the header. And make sure you indent your body. I do think it would be nice if people could change their swizzle as long as it's not currently locked by a storyline. I think it'd be nice if they could change it if the swizzle that they're changing it to is a means they got from a government or storyline. Again, I don't think it should be just there's a paint can somewhere and you can change your ship to whatever colors in the game.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. So, like, you would unlock the colors by doing the faction storyline that has them as that color. That's what I'm saying.
Would that be still locked per playthrough though? Like you wouldn't be able to unlock Free Worlds, Republic, and Syndicate all in the same pilot, would you?
Yeah, it would be on that pilot. That pilot has done the free worlds. Now they have access to blue and to green.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Alright. Next question. Why is there no orbital defense stations, or why can't space stations have guns or turrets?
This has been suggested before. There are some issues that come up on the practicality side of things. You know, you can have multiple space stations orbiting near each other, but then their locations would be different every day, right? So when there is a space battle, maybe in some cases you will get all of the turrets helping you or all of the turrets fighting against you. Should those turrets be fighting each other if the two factions are at war? Like, what would happen in that case?
I do know. I keep doing ties back to EV. I know there's been requests to have it so planets could have weapons. So they're like you define a planet a weapon, and then it shoots that whenever there's an enemy in the system, or maybe there are stations. Having that also happen with stations. You could also botch it by making engineless ships into stations, I suppose, but it's kind of more plug-in territory. It'd be kind of jank for vanilla. There's an issue for planetary weapons? Yeah, I think so. So for the second half of this question, why can't they? There's no functionality for it right now. For the first half is why are there none? I guess that's still the same thing. But then the question would be, should there be, and if so, how relevant would they be to systems? And when I look at that, I think if you're thinking like edge territory systems where, like, say the Republic's fighting the pirates in the north, or Free Worlds has some stations in the south near the pirates, I think, like, there could be a case, I suppose, where those get a weapon or two, but I'm not sure if it'd be the case where like there'd be several orbital defense platforms defending a planet, because for the way fleets spawn in the sky, I feel like having a whole like orbital defense grid for systems might be a bit too much. Doom says, I imagine them working like weapon platforms in SE4. Stations, or like having separate entities for like weapon platforms specifically to weapons. That is a use case that's basically exclusively applicable to alien content, says Iraqi. I think there's some argument to be had there, yeah. For humans at least, I don't think they would have systems full of defense grids. But at the very least, yes, there's an issue open for planetary weapons, and technically stations are planets as far as the game knows. So there could be some reason to implement them, give them a weapon. Although then the question would be what weapon. Like, should it just be like a larger blaster? Should it be a larger missile launcher? Should it just be the same missile launcher or blaster except there's more? You know, maybe there's like a couple turrets on a station, like a ship. Something like that. Doom says, as in you'd have a weapon platform that had inherited from a system object and it'd be able to shoot at you, but it could also shoot. You could also target the weapon in placement and knock it out with your weapons, which would take out the weapon and platform, but not the system object. So that's kind of like in the lines of a station object would have targetable hardpoints, kind of like on your ship, except they're targets, but they're children of the station. I'd imagine that'd be kind of hard to code, wouldn't it? That's the thing that, like...
Maybe. I mean, I think most of the functionality is covered in what you already have with ships.
That's true. I wouldn't know, though. I don't do much.
Yeah, I don't really have a sense of how hard it is to code with things like that.
I think much of the code would have to be duplicated because we don't really have like ammunition associated with planets, right?
Mm,
So any weapon that uses ammo can't use the code that it already is using.
mm.
Also, reload time counters don't exist for planets. We would need to duplicate that. Right now, ships have the reload counters for a lot of weapons because there are like different ways you can synchronize your guns firing. I don't know the exact attribute names, but like you can define volleys and stuff that are shared across different hardpoints on a ship, I think. Yeah, it wouldn't be trivial.
It was apparently done at one point. Hector posted a link to an old PR. It was closed. Why was it closed? It was closed by In the Sky, so I'm assuming MZ. Rather than putting weapons on stellar objects, I think it'd be simpler to do the following. Have a new ship personality that forces it to orbit an inhabited planet. You can just figure out what orbital radius is possible given the ship's thrust and turning, and do its best to insert itself back into that orbit every time it's knocked off course, and allow a system to specify a defense fleet that is spawned in orbit in inhabited planets. That system whenever the player enters that system, or perhaps better, allow individual planets to specify their defense fleets. So it looks like MZ was going more the route of defense platforms, not the planet itself having defenses. Ezra says, my feel I need to demand tribute for Nemesis Gear and 3,000 nukes launch.
I have a cloak, I don't care.
Their nukes suddenly can see cloak ships. I'm an Omnis, I don't care.
I can nuke the planet.
Yeah. So for that question, it's because we don't have the means of doing it right now, and we'd have to talk about how specifically we would implement defense platforms. Or objects. Or weapons on objects. Next question. We do have a decent amount to get through, and it's almost been 50 minutes, so I'm gonna see if I can go a little faster. But would you rather have one battleship-sized gunboat or 50 gunboat-sized battleships?
Gunboat-sized battleships sound epic. Those would be the most overpowered things ever, even individually. Having 50 of them is the dream.
Is this specifically the battleship and the gunboat, or is this just the classes of those ships?
I
Does
mean,
that make a difference?
A scaled up small ship is going to have very limited hard points and therefore not be able to make that much use of its weapon space.
Yeah.
So the larger number of small big ships works better.
What would you rather have, small big or a lot of big smalls? Yeah, I think that's a trick question. You would always go 50 gunboat-sized battleships, not just one ship that's a big ship with small-sized ship attributes. Okay. Next question is there a new species in the works? There always is, but the question will be, will it ever be PR'd or will it be put into the game? And that's for the future. At the very least, there's a lot of species in-game that still need a lot of love, so I think that's a bit more of an important thing to look at. Hector says, Lisa's one currently PR'd. I believe so, and I believe there might be others like in discussion posts or some people are talking on the Discord, stuff like that. There's always technically a new species in the works, but if they ever get into vanilla, that's a question for time. Question that comes with time. Zeppos have been PR'd. Although they've activity on them have been down recently. Now talk are being sort of worked on. Although right now you're trying to work on Wonders 3, yeah. I know some other creators in the Discord are interested in species ideas or contests around things with plugins, so there's always a new species in the works. That's just how the development from this guy works until the galaxy is filled, at least. Harry says, got pulled over by a gunboat this morning. Apparently I was going 10% the speed of light over the limit. You hyperdrived a little too fast. Are you drinking and driving? Drinking and flying? Yeah. Always new species in the works. It's just how it is. Next is not a question, so I'm not going to read it. No, I'll read it. No one seems to use missile jammers. I don't know. Did you ask people if they use them?
I think people didn't use them for a long time because they were broken. And the code side was not working as intended.
Yes, an
But
anarchist.
it was fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anarchist fixed it, and I had included a question in one of the recent feedback boxes for releases if people used them or noticed a difference, and some people did, so it's good to see that. With them working more properly now, I use them occasionally myself if I'm not using an anti-missile. In fact, if I have the room for them, I usually do have them instead of an anti-missile, but also I like on the larger ship, which can fit more of those. Or maybe
I guess part of the issue is that even though missile jammers are strong against some missile types, if you are planning on flying all around the place and you don't have like a specific missile type to jam, then anti-missiles can still be more effective. And they're a more generic solution.
Doom says, missile jammers are very niche in their effect. All they do is make you harder to hit for a specific subset of missiles. In practice, there aren't many cases where you can reliably expect to only be the target of one type of tracking. That's true, yeah. So maybe this question is make them more useful? Question mark. Or maybe the question is, do people use missile jammers? And some people do, some people don't. So maybe there's some room to work with there. I know Doom, I know you've been peeking at missile changes for human space. Doom also says, like in the Navy battles, you've got Sidewinders coming at you with radar tracking, but Meteors with IR tracking, and Torps with optical. So anti-missile works best against all three. It's going to be better than investing in jammers. I also like to cut back on the number of missiles with multiple tracking types. Yeah, is it really the case where... Is it really a jammer problem, or is it an oversaturation problem of missile types in a given area of systems? Because... Go ahead.
Yeah, it's sort of the issue, the balance between, on the one hand, having the variety, but also, for the variety to be meaningful, you have to have cases where you're reliably only against some of the things rather than it always being everything.
Mm-hmm.
So we probably need to look at sort of fleet compositions and what missiles are where and that sort of thing, and try and sort of rework that sort of thing so there's more cases where you can reliably say, right, all of the missiles that are going to be coming at me during these missions are radar missiles, so in this case it's worth me having a radar jammer.
I think the Unfettered only have one type of missile tracking on their missiles. And the Wanderers probably only have one type, and I would imagine the Cestor only has...
Yeah, and I think that's the best area to look at jamming would probably be high space, because it's all about jamming trackers, not really anything else. So, and it feels like there might be even more value about jammers there than there would be value of jammers in human space when you can run into all three types all the time. Did I skip any of the submitted questions? No. There's no real good way for a casual player to know what type of jammer they need to use against a given missile type. Like, I don't know off the top of my head what tracking type most missiles are. I know a couple of them, but definitely not all of them, says Hector.
You can look at them in the outfitter and it will tell you. But yeah, if you don't have an outfitter selling that missile type, then yeah, that is a problem.
I was gonna say, is it not enough that missiles say, if they do, say what type they are in the outfitter, and then jammers say what type of jamming they're good against? I'm not sure.
It's not good enough if you can't look at it anywhere. Like, the automata missiles are not sold anywhere. I don't think so.
Hmm.
And you don't have access to the Wanderer missiles all the time. And
I'm not sure where we can put something for that to be easily visible either. I personally not a big fan of the UI overlay for missiles and ships and stuff like that. I would assume that would be a place you would put it, or could.
I'm not sure how to do that because missiles are really small.
That's it,
So
yeah.
having any kind of icon on them is just going to be overwhelming.
Yeah. Another thing you could do is have like a glowing effect on them, although that might be a bit too silly, I feel.
But how would that convey the tracking type?
Jure says ES combat systems suffer from attempts to approximating reality for variety's sake without those systems actually having any gameplay diversity. I think the diversity is there, it's just a matter of how it's implemented, and like we were saying with jamming, it's not really the greatest. It's... Yeah, like what Doom was saying, it oversaturates jamming. Let's just make jammers jam every type of missile the same way. I don't know about that. I'm trying to remember how EV did it. I think EV only had the 1 or 2 types of tracking. It had like dumb missile, smart missile, and then you can't dodge missile or something like that. Hmm. Doom says, ideally I'd like to see a case where air tracker and lose lock if you stop firing weapons and engines. That'd be cool. I suppose while I'm thinking about it, another thing with EV is the missiles explicitly said what type of missile they were. They said IR. One was called the IR missile, and another one was called the radar missile. So, what if we change the names of the missiles? Maybe we say Meteor IR missile, or then Sidewinder. No, that might be a mouthful.
No, no, because you only see that in the outfitter, and we already showed the tracking type there. Doesn't really change anything.
It'd just be like more upfront display of it, but even at that point, I mean, it's still, you either read it or you don't. Yeah. Hector says, I wonder if we could just add an effect where you're jamming whenever your jammer is working, like how anti-missile has an effect whenever it's firing at a missile. Have your jammers display a visual effect whenever they're working, so at least you know if your jammer isn't working against whatever missile is being fired at you. Combine that with reducing the number of missiles with multiple tracking types, and it should be decent visual feedback.
You can already see when they lose track of you. That should tell you something about its effectiveness, I guess.
Hmm. What if there's some alert in the bottom for like missile launch detected?
Yeah, that's just going to be spam.
Yeah.
And it's not like you have time to read anything when you are fighting.
I kind of agree with the idea that maybe there's just too many missiles everywhere. I mean, you have ships that have that are dedicated to missiles like Rainmakers, or maybe a class of interceptor has some missiles, but Argosies have missiles. Almost all like larger merchant ships have missiles. Every single Navy ship has missiles. or something like
The
this.
combat drone doesn't, and
Oh,
some of the fighters might not.
yeah, but those usually come with ships. I mean, like ships on their own. So maybe. Maybe we make it so some ship roles are more designated for missiles or not. So maybe cruisers stick to their guns, maybe carriers stick to their missiles, maybe rainmakers missiles, gunboats guns, frigates are kind of a something like that, but or at the very least make it so a certain variant of them is a lot more rare than it is now, so it's not like 50-50 chance. Just like commit to one ship class being more missile or missile less. The only ones that don't have long range missiles are the Moretti, yeah. I think, and this is kind of a bias, this is just my personal opinion, again from EV, I don't think we should slash ammo fire rate dramatically, but I think we could do a big enough change so launchers aren't like very close to the same fire rate. Like, again, in EV, our missiles like were rapid fire Gatling gun missiles, and then they stopped, and then radar missiles were more slower but consistent. And then like torpedoes were like they took forever to launch. So I think we could do with a bit more variation in reloads maybe. We already did half the fire rate double damage shenanigans, and honestly it caused more problems than it solved. Because of pods. It's always pods.
Pods are controversial, but personally I love them.
I like javelin pods. I don't really care for the other ones.
I think pods can really add a skill element to fighting with small ships.
Yeah.
Because then, you know, like one-on-one, maybe you both have pods, and then you have to dodge, and then it essentially becomes skill-based. Because like, you can dodge a torpedo pretty easily with a small ship, but, you know, if you don't dodge, you die. So you have to pay attention.
Yeah, it just depends on if you're in a fight where 12 ships are shooting torpedoes at you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright, I'm gonna move on to the next question, because we could sit here and talk all day about how we should change missiles. We're not even half of them yet too, so next question here, we're an hour in. Will human ship names be changed in the future to have more flavor, lore like what was done with the chorus ship names? Probably not. There's no, the way ships are named isn't really consistent. In human space, they have kind of more generic names, and then for some alien factions, some of them are more like adjectives, some of them are verbs, and then some of them are names within the alien language. So there's no real like overarching rule saying names have to be X or Y in that case. I don't think human ships would get their name changes now. There was talk about it in the past, like what if Navy ships get like an actual ship designation, but from what I recall, we were considering just leaving it the way it is. Each alien faction has its own nomenclature, that's how you tell them apart, says Fairy, and yes, I would agree. Coalition ships have like action names for what the ships do. Human ships have adjective names, or sorry, not adjective, like noun names, like carrier, cruiser. High ships have animal names, creature names, kind of bugs. Gigna ships are rocks. Wonder ships are storms, weather. So, and chorus ships are names. So in a sense, you can think that the way chorus ships are named, that's because in their lore, their ships are, their names to them are important, like names after individuals or places or things like that. And then other factions have their own nuances. So maybe the weather for Wanderers is important because they terraform planets, and then high stuff is kind of, I think that it's a little bit more of a design choice for them to be more like about earth animals. But yeah, it's just kind of, it's different for each faction. So if human ship names get changed, probably not. The fact that they are kind of more simplistic nouns is kind of human in of itself, to be honest. Next question is a request, not so much a question. It says, please add a forum channel in Discord for ship builds so we can just discuss them separately and we can look them up easily. Is it really that much of a problem? I usually see people talk about ship builds in channels where the ships are found for like the factions, and a lot of it's in the Sky chat. I don't think it's that interruptive of discussion for it to need its own channel. Oh, that's more.
They could make a chat for it.
I'm not sure we would put it though, because I feel like putting it in the spoiler zone would be excessive because it's specifically factions, and then chat and help is spoiler free. Development isn't really like in-game builds. Blop says stop making new channels. I'd have to agree with Bluff. That'd also be kind of a derpy question too, since he owns the server. Could always go for the half-assed approach and make a thread. I feel like if we do it that way, then just as many people would use the thread as many people would be using regular chats anyways. So yeah. I personally I don't think we need a new channel, but I'm not the one who I'm not making that decision on my own. So I mean, that might be a question to ask the mods. Tell them, because that's more work for them if there's another channel. Yeah, looks like the mods are talking about it, so I'll let them answer that if you want to ask them. Next question is, which faction is going to invade human space next? Mine. No. Good question. I don't know. Is that going to even happen? No, I don't know. As story content stands right now, none. I don't think. Will we ever have someday in the future factions jumping out of their areas? That's a very tight, I don't know. Usually alien factions are kind of dependent on their own story and areas, and if there's any little bit of interactions between them, it's already had beforehand, and as things currently stand with human content, there are plenty of ties as is. So I wouldn't imagine we'd add yet another alien faction getting involved in human space. There's more than enough of that in both the Free Worlds and Wanderer campaign. Alpha Wars 2. Once we have Wanderers done and the 3 main campaigns done and get some more work on stuff in the game that needs more work on it, maybe we can ask that question again later. Next question isn't a question for this guy. How many halls does Azure have? Where do I sign up? You already did. It's too late. You're in the Discord. Or you maybe you aren't. I don't know. Oh yeah, that's right. Doom said the Unfettered might be a contender to invade human space. Maybe something happens there. Although, would that really be a next alien faction to do that? Because technically, I guess there could be opportunities where that happened earlier in other high content, but we'll see. Leading into the next question, though, how is High Reveal? So there's a little discussion of where we want to take it still, kind of sitting in the same place, but we do want to get to it sooner than later. Derpy's on vacation right now, but I know we were talking about looking at it again once he gets back. But that's about all there is to be said on that. Next question is, how do you respond to the allegations that there are more members of the syndicate still affiliated with the Alphas? What?
You would have to have the
that
syndicate.
Alpha group are probably not still around hanging out with the Syndicate. Either they will be hiding or they'll be, dead. The Syndicate are undoubtedly up to all sorts of other various miscellaneous and malevolent things on account of being capitalists, but I don't know if they are working with Alphas. It's a coincidence that it's a second group of Alphas that they've decided to cooperate with.
Yeah, story purposes, those Alphas are probably no longer associated. Alright. Next one is there a plan to make a user to be able to create a company? This was asked last time, and the answer to that is no, because In the Sky is about the player being an individual in a greater galaxy, playing amongst the governments and factions. It's not really a build your own planet or fleet, well, not fleet, but like faction kind of game. We're trying to keep it down a little bit closer to the ground in terms of the player being an individual, so there are no plans for that, no. But you could do it in a plugin. I know some people have tried so already, so maybe look there. Next question is Garfu an abandoned pug world? I'm not answering that, and that's because I don't want there to be an answer for that. Oh, Hector says you could help that one guy build up a company, right? That's kind of close. Yeah, but that's like in universe, kind of, you're helping him build a company. It's not your own company that you own your own captains and market and stuff like that, you know, base, stuff like that. That's stuff we're not really putting in this guy. Yeah, I know who asked that Garapu one. And I'll give you the same answer every time, and it's whatever answer you want it to be. Another non-question, Sable Corliss chat. Working on it. Someone did an oopsie, and we're gonna try and fix that when we can. I'm not pointing any fingers. Next question. Will First, Last, and by extension the Republic, be held accountable for the bombing of Zenith and the subsequent casualties of thousands of innocent civilians? I would imagine the Republic has some sort of hand in responsibility in that. Doom says now you have to lose a war to be held to account for war crimes. No, because large corporations never take accountability for their actions.
We were just following orders.
I don't know about the player, but maybe we could add something that says the Republic knows what they did and they need to do something about it. I don't know. I'm not sure how realistically we would change the story, if at all, around that, but it's people are posting memes from Steam now, so would we do an accountability with that? Probably not with the player. And would we add story elements to that? I mean, we could, but I don't know. Next question, come in, do you read us? I am reading this question, yes, hello. Anyways, what is the next big feature that we're getting very close to? That is a good question.
Hey, we're losing the transmission.
Okay, whoever said that, you were really close to your mic. I didn't understand a word of that. Don't want to repeat? Okay.
I don't know who it was
I
either.
don't either. I think it was Doom, but I could be wrong. I thought it was Warp, but Warp's not in here.
Tom is the only one who hasn't spoken before of the devs, so.
Yeah, Tom. It wasn't me. That's what someone who did it would say. Next biggest feature. Tom, type?
We have a lot of things in the works. Audio, for instance, various updates on the audio system and working towards music. Also, potentially working out some engine things and maybe getting that Wildfire order working again if everything goes well. I know that many of you are looking forward to that.
I still think the game rule changes Derpy wants to add is a big one. If we do get that in for this update, I know he would like to.
Yeah, I guess we will know more when he's back from his vacation.
There's not really one big feature like immediately close to being finished. There's like a lot of stuff we want to work on. Those officer salary changes are pretty big, although I imagine that's not a next update thing, says Hector. I don't know if that's a next update thing. Isn't Anarchist looking at that one?
I think she was, because she posted some screenshot with those. I don't even know what it does, honestly.
I was gonna say I think it adds salary per a certain amount of crew, but I think she changed that in a commit yesterday. Yeah. Talking about disabling the ammo changes. So we were talking about that the other day, and what we're leaning towards with those missile changes right now, and which is why I was also bringing up the game rule stuff, is after some discussion, we do feel like the lore is more important to the game than convenience, because that's how the game is written and how missions and the story is written around, and it's our primary attention to the game. So when it comes to the missile changes, there is a bit of oddity in that right now. So we were fiddling with the idea that, and this is where I was bringing up earlier, with game rules, maybe we have a game rule default that says this is how Endless Sky should be played, and overall it's like the lore and stuff like that. Maybe we have a game rule that says here is for an easier time with Endless Sky, and this one has ammo reloads just turned to on. But either way, the idea would be having game rules in these kinds of changes more accessible to the player in the main menu than it is right now, where you have to go into the game files and do it yourself. So looking at having more of a an upfront menu option for stuff like that before we make any more big changes with that. You guys are still memeing on the Steam messages. Hector says, I think it makes the most sense default to on, since your casual player is going to appreciate changes and is unlikely to go in the files to change it to on. The more invested player that is lore concerns with it is going to be a lot more likely to go on setting it to disable it if it's bothering them. Doom says we're not completely reverting the ammo mechanics change, because from the gameplay side it's definitely been a good change and a lot of people like it, but we're probably going to make it some adjusting to make it more fitting in the universe. Yeah, so we're not undoing it. It's here to stay. It's just what form it stays in is what we're trying to figure out right now. And if we do end up keeping it, defaulting it to on, then yeah, I would say we would have to make some mission adjustments or lore adjustments in that case. Get your Deltarune memes out of here. I don't know if we're doing the factory idea a bit as your, well, it'd be more fabricator, but that was Derpy's idea, so you'd have to ask him. Personally, when we added it, I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's just, like I said, credits crew. It's a convenience that we decided to change, and if you're new to the game, you want to notice that. And if you're not, well, I mean, it's a big change. But I do think there's some warrant into looking into the lore side and at least adjusting something in that case, so something makes more sense. Because yes, the lore is more important in the game than shooty explodey. So we'll see what we do with it. Definitely more room to talk about it, but the mechanic itself is here to stay. Yes, as far as I know. Next thing in the sheets, we're getting closer to the end here. It's not a question, but it is a thank you. It's a thank you for adding a pause where we can still give fleet orders. You're welcome. I don't know how to edit it, but it's certainly something that was asked for a long time. Jim says we're also hoping to add a slowdown as well as a pause. Yes, that has also been a highly requested functionality, is having a slowdown in addition to the fast forward. Which I think would be cool, not only for like finer control of the game, but like let's say you want to play the game at a slower pace, just overall have that like more sluggish ship movement kind of deal. Plop says the first time I clicked pause I thought I broke the game. You know what's funny? When I made the announcement in the Discord and I put that part in as one of the features of the update, I did that mistake of I took a screenshot, and when I was alt-tabbing and taking the screenshot, my key binding for pause turned into left windows, and I saw that after I posted the announcement. I was like, okay, don't put that as your default key, and I didn't remember that I didn't change that. So when I got into the game the other day and I alt-tabbed to get into the game, and I was wondering why my game wasn't moving. It's like, oh, that's right, it's pause. Thank you, Manitory. Campfire chat bug post and the smugs one. Oh, that's right. I saw Tom wrote that, but I thought I said it out loud. One of the big features we'd like to still get into the game is hold fire. It's just been a hectic thing to work to get working. I know those on the code side are having fun with that. Azure says when you're adding random hyperlanes. Wasn't Derpy gonna look at that? Or someone? I know someone in the code side was gonna look at how to work those so they don't break the game. Just another case where getting it to work is the first part. Yeah, when someone codes it in a way it doesn't break the game. No, code everything so everything breaks the game. In the Sky Challenge, play the game for more than a minute.
I didn't know you worked for Bethesda.
No, we'd have to put some DLC content in first before we did that. We should edit AI CPP more. Have fun with that. I'm not. Alright. Will we ever see another species invent hyperlinks? Lordox says it's a 50-50 if species discovers that or jump drive first. I said this publicly, but the relay discovered the jump drive first. They're long gone now, but they do hyperlane shittery. Will another species in the galaxy do that in the future? I don't know. It's kind of a hard point to discuss because there's a lot of pretty good high tier species in the galaxy right now, and the addition of any more would have to have a pretty good reason. High tier species, yeah, is the same tier as the high. We definitely need to be more careful with adding any more high tier species in the galaxy, that's for sure. It starts to muddy the pool with like the Korg and whatnot. If there's a bunch of like tier 2 and 3s at that point, then it's like, well, jump drives in 2.5, that's true. I mean, it could be the case. Maybe another one sometime in the future. That being said, I still want to expand on the relay more, and I will do that eventually. Have Geek really goop themselves chapter 3. I don't know about giving the relay nukes, that seems like a terrible idea. Well, because if they use nukes in the way that they use stars. We were going to get the Watchers, says Raki. Yes. I don't know if that's still the plan. I think Derpy still would like to do that, but I don't know what all the plan is there. We have tier 9. What's tier 9? The game launcher? Could someone enlighten me on what the heck a watcher is? Yeah, it's that thing you put in your wrist and you look at it to know what time it is in the day. It's an alien species idea that Derpy had for another one someday. But he's got enough to work around with the Bunrodia and doing all the other development parts of the game. Fat Quark. Question. I've noticed unused Republican Wanderer ship models stored on the GitHub. When are these intended to be implemented? If you're talking about the Heavy Gust, that will be implemented next update. If you're talking about the Squall and Hailstone, those will likely come in future Wanderer content. And if you're talking about the Battleship, maybe future Wanderer content. Sorry if you can hear my dog. But they're in the files to be eventually used, yes. It's just a matter of getting to the content that they may or may not be used in. These are space orcs. The humans are good. What about Class C frigate? I believe that'll be used in Syndicate content. And what about the Chorus ships? Again, I think those will be used in Chorus content. It's just a matter of getting to writing the content to implement them. The ships in the game that aren't implemented yet are planned to be implemented in some shape or form, yes. Like ignore our space orc here, space orcs. In a way. Alright, now we're getting into questions. Well, I guess these are all from today, but these are from before right when we started Campfire Chat, because I saw this one pop into existence as I was talking. If we do race-specific hyperdrives, could we see some extra tactical depth in min-maxing hyperdrives by virtue of differing variables such as size, fuel usage, and minimum speed? Though I kind of like drives having 100 fuel use per jump due to less mental division calculation load required. I mean, we certainly could.
Yeah, I can see us doing that. It would be doable. It's what we've done with every other outfit, after all. I mean, apart from, like, you know, outfits expansions and Karka expansions, they're just the same, but
Yeah.
they're not really, they don't represent a physical thing as much as sort of, you know, rearranging stuff, so it makes sense that they're not done differently in different places. But yeah, I mean, I could see, you know, I mean, maybe the Korath have a hyperdrive that's smaller, uses a bit more fuel, works at higher speeds, but also, I don't know, uses up energy and generates heat or something. We've got a lot of potential levers to play with, and we absolutely could sort of play around a bit and create more variety in those outfits, yes.
There's also the idea that looking at hyperdrives, how they work in the space the species is in. So human space is pretty big compared to other places in the map because it's the main part of the game. So there might be reasons for maybe like a high jump drive might be a little bit different, maybe for their time earlier in the galaxy when they own more systems, or maybe hyperdrive for the coalition is less so about the range on it because they have their only so much system area, stuff like that. So there's certainly many ways we could differentiate hyperdrive balancing if we do variants. And like we were talking about earlier with the Shragi, their hyperdrive and engine system is all one thing, so technically they have their own variant in a sense. Although I don't know if we would do a bunch of hyperdrives as second outfits for every, like, we could maybe do that once or twice, but not for everything. Something like that. Do you think alpha phobia ethical? What? Do you think alpha phobia ethical? Like, they're living people, but they're alphas. Write a 5-paragraph essay defending your argument. Republic hate alpha. Boom. I don't know. I think that's like a think it what you will kind of question, how endless guy is. If alphas are so cool, why is there no beta? Isn't there a beta in the game? In like high space, high core ring?
Yeah, there are at least 2, I think.
I know there's 1, but I don't know there's 2. Yeah, but he's not fully released yet. Yes, we need to keep him from being released. Keep him in character selection. He's not ready yet. You have to unlock him. Them. He or she, they. The Buddhist guy's also a beta? Yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
Consider that Alatus is an alpha and lived happily without incident in coalition space over years, so it's obvious that alphas aren't necessarily incapable of living normal, peaceful lives. Yeah. There's the perspective of them in Republic space and human space, and then there's also stories of them in other areas. Like, there's also the aggressive alphas in the Chorus storyline, then there's the alphas in the coalition space, there's the betas, so there's not like one specific representation or view on alphas. There's my 5-paragraph essay, and people are defending my argument. Jim says, the alphas sort of present a moral quandary presented to the player, double prism, really, is deliberately something that we as devs are making a final decision on or trying to present clear right and wrong answers. The player is invited to form their own opinions on what is right decision within the world. Yes. That's a pretty important theme in Endless Sky across all factions, really, is there is no right or wrong, it's what side or perspective you view it in. There may be like views that given people or factions in the lore have on another, but you as a player, that's up to you. Yeah, see, Azure here says, I don't care about the alphas. Another valid perspective. Some people don't care about the main story. They just like trading. All the power to them. Alright. Let's get to the next one here. Could we add a way to deploy into a fighter inside your capital ship and fly that around? Yeah, we talked about that. I think this question popped up while we were talking about that. Why the AI manage? Oh, I see. I'm sorry. Fly that ship around while the AI manages your big ship. Would let you engage in dogfights. Maybe another fighter support you. So you're saying you would deploy out in the fighter, and as you do, your flagship would become the fighter, and your flagship would turn into an escort. I think that'd be probably complicated to do hierarchies in that for coding, wouldn't it? For fleet orders and such.
I can imagine all sorts of things breaking in all sorts of ways if we tried to add the ability to change your flagship during flight. Because nothing in the game has been designed around that being possible.
Yeah. It's one thing if your ship dies and you jump out as your fighter, but having your ship active and swapping it, just missions trying to gauge your flagship's capability or outfits or jamming, like if you swap your flagship, is it using the jamming on your flagship? Yeah. Could we do that? I don't know. I think it'd be a lot of effort to do it, and basically rewriting half the game's code probably, if I had to guess. Or at least half of how the flagship works. So probably not, and if so, a very, very far down the road if we could kind of thing. This question is formed as a sentence, so I'm going to read it as that. Surveillance drones fighters or drones fighters that have scanners should be able to pass the data to their flagship carrier. It's just kind of the case of scanners are more specifically for the player flagship and don't really have much of a use outside of that on AI ships. So, should the data... like giving your escorts an order to scan a ship, and then when it's finished, I mean, would that still pop up as a dialog box then if the escort did it? Or I mean, I guess that could be the case. Although at that point, it's still, you only need one scanner. You could have a fleet of 30 ships, and you'd only need one scanner on a single ship. So if not your flagship and it was on an escort, is it really that much of a difference besides a few tons off of your flagship? So I don't know how important that would be to make it so your escort does the same thing you could just do with your flagship. And if we would look at that, I think the question should be, could there be more value to scanning modules than there is now? Yeah, Hector says seems like a lot of effort for not much payoff. Yeah. Scanning overhaul when? And Doom says we already had one scanning overhaul, it broke everything and took ages to fix. It's still not fixed. Yeah. I think it's one of those game features that should probably stay simple to the player's flagship. There's not really a whole lot of value in expanding on that right now. And if we did, it'd probably be a huge overhaul. Getting to the last few questions here. Can we add images to the logbook now? Tybe, I remember you talking about that.
I did?
Yeah, we were talking
I
about...
honestly don't know if we can do this.
I think the discussion was more, should we do it or can we do it? And it would be a good place to do it, having images in the logbook. Can we do it? I don't think so. But is it a plan? I'd say so, eventually. Is it a priority? Not at this moment, I don't think. Tom says I could do it, I just need the fancy graphics from the issue. Well, there you go. There's your requirement. Your quest for the day. Find Tom his graphics. Alright, next question I'm going to skip because it's not really appropriate for a campfire chat. And last question is, will there ever be a way to obtain a heron? It is the ultimate ship, and if you do enough for the remnant, maybe they let you buy it in exchange for maybe tons and tons of alien tech and tons of credits.
No.
Yes, no. To expand upon that, the original plan with the heron, I believe, when Zitchus was working on the remnant, was you could fly it for a mission, but you wouldn't be able to own one because it was like a highly important ship for high standing remnant in their society, and you as an outsider human, like, you could probably have like that honor, but you wouldn't actually become that. Same way as you wouldn't become owner of the Navy shipyards or something like that. You could maybe fly it, but would you ever get one? Probably not. It'd be the same reason of you would never get a Course Mammoth or something like that in lore. And if you couldn't board one and the game wouldn't break, you still wouldn't get one. But currently, as people are pointing out in chat, the Heron is not canon. It is a person ship. Person ships are not canon ships. And that also applies to things like the battleships. So if we ever do implement it, I would imagine it would not be something you could just purchase or obtain. It's super heavy, it's extremely powerful, it's a one of, as far as I know. So no, there's no plans for that to be an attainable ship. Alright, that was the last of the submitted questions. It is 1:45. Let's take the next 15 or so minutes to wrap things up, answer questions more freeformly in chat, have some discussion if you'd like, and be out of here in about by the hour. Yep, opening the floor to questions in the text room. I got a chatter in my Twitch stream asking. It's a bot for stream viewers. I always say, cheap viewers. No, I want the most expensive viewers. Goodbye. Okay. Why is VS Code so bad? I don't know. Quick had me switch, or I was convinced by Quick to switch to it one time, and then Quick disappeared, so... I originally used code blocks, but I'm not the person to ask how well each of them work, because I only work with them minimally. Where am I standing once the floor is open? You're supposed to use your jetpack. You didn't get one of those? Sucks. Will there be new ships? Of course. No, never. Yeah, just in. We're removing ships next update. We're removing every ship except one. I'm not gonna tell you which one it is. Actually, not even that. It's gonna be every time you start a new playthrough, your ship is randomized. That could be a fun game setting. What is that called for like Pokemon games where you like it randomizes everything? Is it really just called randomizer? I thought there was another word for it. Can't wait for the dropship playthrough. Gotcha mechanics. Yeah, Nuzlocke. Although that's not specifically for the randomizer part, so yes, Nuzlocke. Just randomize every ship in the game. Suddenly there's a Course Mammoth owned by a pirate flying around Earth. Has anyone heard from Derry recently? I haven't, but I believe Derry's on a break from working on ES content. Although I think if you message her, she will respond when she's able to. The government is building a secret mind control base in Saugia Star. That's where the alphas are all going. You thought it was a black hole? It was a hologram. Universe is a hologram. Excuse my campfire, or sorry, my browser typing. New weapons? I mean, yeah. Although it looks like Lunaya is not in the voice channel, so they can't hear me answer that. Extra questions. Is there, it says a wall. Is there plans to add relay question combo with the Quark? It seems like something that would be natural reaction to meeting the sentient soup. Yes, I actually plan on doing that at some point. Although the idea would be the Quark wouldn't tell you anything. There's some lore going on. Basically, the Quark would like kind of deny that they really exist or existed. And they wouldn't be the ones to give you the explicit information on them. As they would. Yes, indeed. They would just say you're just talking about some random space life and that happens, dude. That's part of the galaxy. Really is the Quark's moment. If you're interested, I did on the GitHub in one of the discussions. I made a relay discussion and I gave some facts about them. I don't remember what all I said though, so I don't want to spoil anything. Blessings asks, why do the Archons ignore me when I show them my new shiny artifact I just caught? I feel like they, if anything, would be like, haha, the pug got one of their good ships stolen. They're smart, like, they can speak to you telepathically. They're smart enough to know that you're not a pug flying it. Or maybe, because the Quark are like, when you show your artifact to them, the Quark are like, this baby got a dragon, doesn't know how to use it. The Archons probably even beyond that are just probably like sighing. Probably like, oh, it looks like you got a toy and you're all happy with it. It doesn't. That means nothing. Yeah, they don't even care. That's actually a good point. In the whole idea with the Archons versus the Pug, even though they're said to have conflict with each other, is it conflict where they're both angry though, or is it conflict where one's annoying and the other one doesn't give a crap? Which would be the Archons. We never heard an Archon mention the Pug. Yeah, not. There's no like direct mention of them being like at opposition. Yeah, if you're Iraqi here recently has been talking about getting some stuff with the coalition campaign done. If you're interested in looking into that and possibly writing parts about that, I know there's a channel in the Discord called Coalition Dev, and you can ask Iraqi, because Iraqi has the ideas in his head, but he only has the one hand and he can't write them all. Or the one mouse and keyboard, I should say. Okay, now everyone's, as you're saying, someone tried Abgi's story. So you had 8? Oh yeah, you're right. 8 hands, or I don't know what you call those on spiders. There's a name for them because they look like more like paws. Digits. I think it depends on the arachnid and what you call a digit on them. You find a really cute jumping spider. I've seen them around my windows. They're chill little guys. I like jumping spiders. The other person who has joined right before we wrap things up. We got about 8 minutes. Any questions you can put in the chat. Hey, before you be posting pictures of spiders, I'd spoil them because some people in here might have arachnophobia. Victor says I saw a spider once. Once. The spider blinded. Spiders are real. Yeah, we didn't want to tell you this, but one faction in the sky is actually from real life outside of humanity, and we're not going to say which one. We got all these secret tips from the government saying that there's aliens, but one of the factions in the sky is actually from real life aliens. We're not going to tell you which one. It's not humanity. Oh, true. It could be the spiders from the coalition. That's why they're all realistics. From the fantasy of in the sky with the horses and the spiders and the beetles. Oh. Someone didn't believe that. I appreciate the aliens in question because it appears to write this storyline. I don't think that's just the aliens in question. I think that's just the aliens in the game period. I did want to stream again sometime within the next week and work a little bit more on the Gegma missions. Oh, that probably would be very exciting to watch. Excuse me. Alright, it's about 5-2. I'm gonna consider wrapping it up here. I also just realized on my Discord leave and join sound, so people are gonna hear that on stream. Sorry. Any final thoughts? Mug. Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for coming. Thank you everybody who's watching the stream, everyone who's watching the VOD. Thank you for submitting your questions, and thank you to those who are here to answer them. And for all the devs joining, all the people joining the voice chat. Our next campfire chat will be, let's see, on the 6th of September. May not be me hosting it at that time, but we'll see. Could be derpy, could be doom. No. Alright, thanks everyone for coming. I'll see you next time. Be sure to submit any questions we didn't answer or you would like to see answered in the future in the sheet pinned in the messages. And we'll get to them next time. See you.
Bye.